Hi, I'm Danielle Williams, AK. I'm a designer, stylist, consultant, and advocate for size inclusivity and diversity within the fashion industry. Welcome to the Xtnded Convos podcast. This podcast is a space to host conversations with industry insiders to learn about their journey through the industry. From designers to content creators, creative directors to community builders, we will get the inside scoop on the people taking the plus and inclusive size space to the next level. Follow us on Instagram at xtend.co and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes. This is the Xtnded Convos podcast presented by Xtend Consulting Co. I'm so excited to introduce my guest for this episode of the Xtnded Convos podcast, Yesenia Torres. Yesenia serves as the creative director and head of design at Eloquii, where she heads the design teams over Eloquii, bridal, swim, accessories, collabs, and Eloquii elements. As the creative director, she heads all photography and editorial content. Yesenia has over a decade of experience in the fashion industry, working in both straight and plus size markets. She has a keen style and an elevated taste level that I personally admire. And I'm excited for you all to learn more about this amazing woman that I met almost 16 years ago. So with that, let's welcome Yesenia.
Thanks, Danielle. I'm so happy to be here. And I love the synchronicity of our story.
Yes, I love it too. I can't wait for us to share that. That's actually where I kind of want to start. I like to start these podcasts. This podcast kind of serve as a space for me to have conversations with people that I've met through my journey in the industry. And what I love about us, and I like to start these with sharing the story of how I met the people that I have on this podcast. Ours started very early. Many of the people that I've had on this podcast, our stories have started a little bit later in my career, but you and I stories started right at my college career. We started back almost 16 years ago in Miami. We both went to Miami International University of Art and Design. And from what I remember, and I'll kind of tell my story, you can kind of come in with anything you remember from your perspective. We didn't have a ton of classes together. I want to say very few, because I also think you started a little bit before me. But I just remember us connecting during that time. And I also don't remember there being many plus size girls during that time either. So I also feel like we connected on that level of just kind of recognizing being women in these bodies in a space that, quite frankly, learning about fashion, you don't learn, at least at that time, you weren't learning about plus fashion. That was never even a part of the conversations throughout education for me. So yeah, we connected there, and I think our journeys, our stories have, like you said, they have aligned in a really beautiful way, with us both not necessarily starting at working in plus companies, but eventually going that route. And I think based on the education we were able to gain, our experience in being plus size women, women of color, we've been able to go into these companies and really give, I think, a unique insight and unique input as designers, and for you as a creative director now.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I agree with our story. I remember one class that we had together, which was like an illustration class, and you are a powerhouse. I remember being like, damn, Danielle, she's so good. Like,
I
she's
appreciate
so great.
that.
Yeah. And that was the class that was like kicking my butt because I was always late to that class. Like, notorious. Our teacher at the time would be like, I'm gonna get you an alarm clock. So I think it was like a Saturday, like, morning class.
Makes sense. The fact that I was even on time says a lot too. Let me just say, in Miami.
Yeah, exactly. In Miami, going to school in what they call Wynwood now. Like,
it's very different. Miami is a very different place than what it was exactly there.
But yeah, honestly, I was thinking about this today in like preparation for our talk. Like, we never learned about plus size, and you are so right. We were the only plus size women that were in our class. and we had one other plus size designer who was a male who also, funny enough, we went to school with so many people, and you can fact check me. I don't know how many actually made it into the fashion industry, but I always like to think in my head, I'm like, these plus people, we made it.
We did. No, you're absolutely right. We have carved our careers.
Yeah. But yeah, it is kind of wild to think now in 2023. I'm like, wow, I have a degree in something that I wasn't even a part of the conversation.
Yeah. No, I always think back on that. And even in going from Torrid to 11 and kind of diving a little bit more into like the contemporary world, and then even this seeing luxury designers and high-end designers, like that was not, I never thought I would design plus, because in that space, it's like you're only thinking about one customer and just this handful of legacy brands that they teach you about in fashion history class that, again, just doesn't acknowledge women outside of a certain standard. So it really, and I don't know if you have this experience, we kind of had to teach ourselves what that meant, aside from the traditional teaching and training of kind of classic fashion design.
Yeah, 100%. I think like I always loved fashion. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was like, oh, I would tell people when I was a kid, I was like, I'm gonna work for Anna Wintour one day. I didn't even know what that meant, but in my head, I was like,
and now you're like, wait a minute, is that what I want to do?
I'm like, right. I'm like, do I want to do that?
Right.
But I feel like when I got into design school, I still didn't know I wanted to do plus, right? I knew I wanted to be in fashion because I was like, okay, my whole life I've had to have the crying in the dressing room moment, right? We've all been through that if you live in this body. And I was just like, okay, one day maybe I'll be able to like change that. Or maybe I had these like big hopes and dreams. Like by the time I'm graduated from college, maybe some other brands will like pop up and I could like find a way there. But like even like my biggest like, and I can't even believe we're not there yet, dream was, well, eventually all brands will carry everything in plus, right? Because we're the majority, so I might as well get like ahead of it. So yeah, it's interesting that like my career is in plus now, but starting off I was just like more of like, I love fashion, I want to be a part of fashion. Even then, back then, I was still just like not even including myself or people like myself 100% in the conversation, because it's not like what society deemed acceptable. It wasn't what we were learning. It's just been, it's like a psychological mess in a way.
It very much is. That's awesome. You kind of started talking about this a little bit, but what was the moment? I like to always start at the beginning. When did you decide that you wanted to pursue fashion?
So my family is Cuban and my grandparents immigrated from Cuba. And when they came over, they didn't have an education. They couldn't read or write English. They couldn't speak English. So they had to take the first jobs that they could. And my grandmother, in Cuba, her sister was a wedding dress designer.
Oh, wow.
So she would help her in Cuba make dresses. And when she came to the United States, she was like, okay, well, I have this skill set. I don't really need to talk to anybody. So she ended up working as what they called back then a fort lady at a factory.
Okay.
And basically what she did is she managed like production lines, and she would also, like on the side at night, she would bring work home with her and she would like have to clip off the loose threads of like shirting, or she'd have to like readjust patterns for whatever production they were going to be working on. And I spent a lot of time with my grandparents as a kid. My parents were both very career focused. And so in the Cuban culture, it's like kind of frowned upon to have like a nanny or daycare. Like not my child.
Right.
They're like, you better go with your grandparents. So I spent a lot of time with her and I got really interested in like what she was always doing. She had this little back shed, which we call now a she shed, basically. So my grandmother was like ahead of the times. and she was always sewing in there. And I remember I always wanted to like cut up all the towels in her house, or all of like the pieces of fabric from like the linens, and like dress Barbie. And I think she got pretty upset with me, and she was just
Right.
like, "Okay, kid, like if
Let's
you're
get
gonna
you some
ruin it,
fabric, right?
yeah, like let's teach you how to really play." And so like I just saw that very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of went with me to like high school, like middle school and high school. And I think like where I really knew was I became so like, in a way, like rebellious on the, like, I'm not gonna be a 13-year-old kid wearing Lane Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with Lane Bryant, but I was like, I'm not a lady, you
Right.
know, I'm still a kid. And
Right.
so my mission every weekend was like to go out to the mall with my mom and
Mm-hmm.
like suck it up and be like, I know I'm gonna have a breakdown, but I'm gonna try every single thing on at
Yeah.
all of the stores and like try to find things. And that like really made me, in a way, like I took a traumatic experience and made it a positive, because it really made me think a lot about like proportions and fabrics, which ones can work, which one can I get into, which one
Right.
can't I get into.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of became like known for the way that I dressed
Mm-hmm.
in school, because one, I think it was still like not very common to see a plus size body that is actually fashionable, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and two, I was just like finding things from like thrift stores and stuff like that, just like making things up, because I was like,
Yeah.
like I said, I refused to not have a personality. And I had a teacher I was taking a marketing class, and my teacher, she worked in the industry like many years ago. And honestly, I credit my like true reason to getting into this because of her. She said to me, she's like, you should be a fashion designer. She's like, I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but this is what you were meant to do. Like God put you on
Oh,
this
I
earth
love
for
that.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of took it really seriously when she
Mm-hmm.
said that, and she pushed me. She said to me, "Okay, we're gonna have a marketing runway show this year to fund our trip for," it was this class called DECA, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know if they do that anymore, but it was, we had to go to some championship to like show off some marketing project. And
Uh-huh.
my teacher was like, "You're gonna make clothes for the runway show." And I was like, "Great, I
Wow.
have no idea what I'm doing, but cool, yeah, I'll do that." And that was it. It was just like after that, I feel like I just closed my eyes and I'm like right here, right now, because
Yeah.
everything kind of happened so fast. And I I like I can't even think of anything else in the world I would do.
Right. No, that's beautiful. I mean, you telling that story again, the way our stories align, it's very similar. I always say one, plus size women who especially love clothes, we are the best shoppers because we had to be. Like we had no choice but like to find the gems within the mountains of things that wouldn't fit us or wouldn't work for us, but we were able to find those pieces that worked really well. And again, like you, I knew I wanted to get into fashion in high school. We actually had a fashion club that did a fashion show every year, and like all the students from different schools would come. But yeah, that was really, high school was the space where I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna at least go to college for it, and then like let's see what happens after that.
I wish we could have split screened our
I
lives,
know
recorded it,
it's
and be like, look at these girls on this path.
from two totally different places, different worlds, but still
Yeah.
very, very similar stories. I love that. So you kind of spoke to being plus. I'm assuming, I know for me, I've been plus as long as I can remember. Like I've just always been plus. I don't know if that's your same
Oh
experience,
yeah. Since
but
like 6 years old.
yeah. Yeah. How has your kind of personal plus journey impacted the way you have chosen to approach design?
Oh wow, this is like a therapy question in a way. I feel like when I when I started my career, I started in straight size.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a little bit of a challenge, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna design all this stuff that I wish I could wear one day.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that was magical, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I was like, these things don't exist. I don't even know if I'll ever be able to wear this, but I'm going to put all of this passion into it. And it's almost like when you're taught in a straight size body in a way, like you can design whatever, you can wear whatever, right? There's no limits. Then when I transitioned into plus size, I was like, I don't know. I thought I was like the Joan of Arc of plus size or something. I don't even know what I was thinking, but it really was like a big emotional journey because I came in and I was like, I'm going to change everything. Like, you can't tell me this customer won't wear anything, blah, blah, blah. Right. So I went on that whole tangent. And then at the end of the day, you have to realize like this is a business.
Right.
And even though I'm passionate about it and I'm like so far along on my journey.
Right. Because you started so early.
Correct.
Right.
The customer is not.
Right.
And that has been in a way a like beautiful kind of thing because in my head I treated it as like a graduation program. I thought like, okay, I'm gonna come in guns blazing. It's gonna be like couture for plus size, and I had to like really pump my brakes because the customer wasn't ready for that. When I started at Eloquii 6 years ago, like the number one thing I was selling was like a scuba midi length skirt. And I was like, oh dear God.
In every color.
In every color, in every print. Like I was like, whoa, okay. And I was trying to push, but as I was pushing, I also created for the first time in my career, like a really one-on-one community with a customer. Because I think in a very respectful way at the brand, like we have a lot of diverse body types and not everyone is plus at Eloquii, and they really care about what the customer wants and thinks, and they didn't want to just make assumptions.
Right.
So I got to talk to customers a lot, and it was like this aha moment where I was like, whoa, you like, okay, you've never even tried a short sleeve anything before. You've never even tried a sleeveless anything before. And I think that kind of messed with me a bit in the journey in the beginning to understand like how hard to push, what not to push, where the customer is. And now I sit here like 6 years later and I think to myself, like, wow, this customer has changed so much.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like it's like weird and cheesy to say this, but I'm like, I'm proud of this customer.
Yeah.
Like we've come a long way. We still have many strides to make in this industry. But I found it challenging at first, thinking that everyone was on this like same soapbox that I was on.
Right.
And they weren't. They were like, hey, whoa, wait. They're like, I just want to like try something on to start. Like
just something to look and feel good. Something that fits. Right.
Exactly. They like customers never knew how, like, it's no surprise that dresses is like the number one performing category in this industry for plus. It's because it's the easiest. It's what they call a throw and go.
One thing to get your whole look.
Yeah, I met so many customers. They're like, I've never worn pants. I've never tried on pants. I don't even know what to look for. And so that was like really humbling in the sense of like, I got to take it way back because there's so many people who have never even had the opportunity to even understand what their personal style is.
Right.
And what even having personal style means.
Right. And I
think like we've been just like forging that since we were kids.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I got to go way back now and slow down.
And I think because for so long, plus has been an aesthetic, right? Like that is your style. Your style is plus, where it's like, but no, that's not an aesthetic. That's not a style. It's not a personal style. That's my size, but we're all different. We all have different styles, different inspirations, different moods. I mean, me, myself, one day I can be like super femme and the next like streetwear down. So it's like, how can we give this customer, allow her to find her personal style by showing her and serving up, these different things. And I think actually Eloquii does that really well with just your little capsule drops. They all have like a different vibe, a different aesthetic that I think different women or all women can play in if they so choose.
Yeah, I'm glad that you see that. That makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a core of the way that I design and that
Yeah.
my designs. Like, it's hard because when you look at brands all over the world, straight size, they have like an aesthetic, right? They
Right.
have a strict POV, what they're
Mm-hmm.
going for, what their hand is, all of that. I wanted so badly for that to be the case when I started at Eloquii, but then as I realized, like, whoa, we almost have to be like everything to everyone.
Right.
And that becomes really hard.
Yes.
So the way around it was, okay, this drop, like literally every time I design a new collection, I'm like, okay, who are we dressing this time? What do we
Mm-hmm.
want to go after? And we also don't want to like ostracize our other customers too.
Right.
So I will create a collection with a very specific point of view, but then I
Mm-hmm.
will also make sure in every drop there's a little bit of something for everyone. But we got to the place where like we just have so many different types of customers in wherever their journey is, that we kind of have to have a little bit of everything for everyone while still maintaining ourselves to be like trend first, because that's who we are. That's like, if anything that I can say about this brand is like, if it's happening in fashion, we're doing it no matter what. I don't believe in those restrictions. We don't believe in like outcasting the customer because we don't even use the word flattering or anything like that. We're just like, this is cool, let's put it in, someone will want it.
Right. No, I love that. And I think that's what you kind of spoke to the evolution of this customer. And I think, I started when I came into the plus industry, I started at Toward, which was, I don't even know how many years ago now, but it was that same almost challenge, if you will, of really not, as a designer, you have to almost take yourself out of it a little bit. Like you want to bring your full self and your experiences and, your perspective to the table as you design. But again, like you said, it is a business. And so we do have to play that role of listening to the business, looking at the numbers, listening to customer feedback and reviews and all of those things to be able to make the right decisions for the business. And I'm sure you can appreciate this because you have been on the brand side. I think where it sometimes can get difficult is when you have this group of customers who are ready for like the new, whose a style has evolved and is really willing to take the risk, kind of asking for one thing. And then you have these other customers who are actually like spending the money and telling you with their dollars what they're looking for and what they're willing to invest in, being able to balance those two requests, if you will, or the needs of those two customers from a brand position.
Yeah, I feel like you hit the nail on the head. That is literally the conversation
Mm-hmm.
every day. It is that dichotomy of the spenders, the big
Mm-hmm.
spenders, the diehards for your brand want
Right.
one thing, and then there's the who's who in plus size fashion,
The
right? And
gatekeepers almost, yeah.
exactly, and
Mm-hmm.
they want a whole other thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how do you blend both
Right.
to not just like, we are a business, of course we want to keep the lights on, like I
Mm-hmm.
still want to have a career, all
Right.
of those things, but also like I do feel like a sense of a responsibility to
Right.
this customer, all of
Right.
them, all the customers,
Yep.
which, as you know, being plus size, that becomes even more personal
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like more, oh my God, I don't want to let anyone down. It's like you're
Yes.
letting down your friends and your family or
Right.
something. So it can be tricky. And I would say, like, I still think there's so much work to do here in
Yeah.
this industry. Like, I love my brand. I love what we do. I'd love more brands to continue to pop up so
Right.
they can have their own sense of style, so that the customer
Right.
doesn't feel frustrated
Right.
with us,
Where it's like
because
they only have one place to go to kind of find what they
exactly,
need. Yeah.
exactly, because it's hard. It is hard.
Yeah. It's a responsibility, like you said. It's like, wait a minute, I need some help carrying this weight.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you talked about starting in straight size. So then how was that transition? I know you were in Florida, obviously where we met, but you were working in Florida. How was that transition from Florida going to New York City?
Oh man, it was like the best thing I ever did.
Oh, man.
I think I always knew I wanted to live in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew it. And for some reason, without knowing anything about anything, I was like, if I want to work in fashion, I got to live in New York.
Right.
Um, it was scary at
Mm-hmm.
first because I didn't move to New York in my early years. You know, like most people, they go to college and then they move to New York. They have 85 roommates. They create their tribe in this one bedroom apartment, and that's how it goes. I kind of had a little bit more of a risk averse way of looking at it because I was just like, I don't want to get to New York, the place that I want to be so badly, and then have to turn around and come back home because it like chewed me up and spat me out, right? So I worked at White House Black Market for 8 years, which was an incredible, I call it like an incredible, like almost school of design. I worked in every single category while I was there, and I learned a lot. But deep down in my heart, I was like, this is not my forever home. I have so much more that I want to do. And I also want to design for people who look like me. And I had been like waiting for a sign. I'm a spiritual person, so I was like, okay, God, I'm ready. Like I
Right.
had been
I'm ready when you're ready.
yeah, I was like, I'm ready. Just send me a sign. And
Mm-hmm.
funny enough, my mom was like, oh, have you heard of this little brand called Eloquii? They just opened under the limited, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, they're kind of like work clothes, but they kind of have some cool stuff. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And so I stalked their website for like 2 years to look for jobs. And
Yeah.
one day it just popped up. The role that I needed popped up. And I was like, okay, God, I'm gonna apply. They may not take me because I'm in Florida,
Yeah.
but it worked out. And when I got to New York, I had to learn a lot, not
Mm-hmm.
just like from a new career, but a whole new lifestyle.
Yeah.
I didn't have a car. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
anybody in New York City. It was just me and the
Mm-hmm.
rats, I guess, And I was just about to turn 30 years old when
Okay.
I got here. So I was like, whoa, starting over when you're
Yeah.
30, that's rough.
Yeah.
um, and I was starting at a position at Eloquii where I couldn't really be, close friends with people there because a lot of them would be reporting to me.
Got you. Yeah.
So it was an interesting journey. The first year, I think the first year was great because all I did was pour my entire life
Yeah.
into this brand, and like I didn't think about anything other than Eloquii, and I
Yeah.
loved it. Like some people are like, you're crazy, but I loved it so much
Mm-hmm.
because it was like this is it. This is my
This is what
moment
I
in
came here
life.
for. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then year two came, and I like had things like really settled with where I wanted to be. And I was like, okay, I think I need to have a personal life
Right.
now. So I like had to sign up for like all these classes and meetups and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I guess I found my place now here.
Great.
It's still hard. New York City
Yeah.
is a hard place. It's very expensive to live here.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a very big hustle mindset. Like
Yeah.
every single day I'm like, I gotta show up, and I gotta show up at 100 because like my life depends on it
Yeah.
basically.
It's
And
a livelihood. Yeah.
that's the New York City grind. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so many people who want your job here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you cannot let anyone take that from you because the minute you drop the ball, that's it. There's 8 other people waiting.
In line.
Hmm. So yeah,
Awesome.
New York has been great, but it
Yeah.
is definitely a hard city. And I actually acclimated to the winter really well. So
That's the hard part. It's the
yeah,
reason I'm still in LA. I'm like, wait, I don't know. Can I wrap my head around? And I'm
come
from the
on
East
over,
Coast.
Danielle. Come on.
I'm
I'll
from the
take
East
you
Coast, so
here.
I know it, but I'm like, I mean, LA's been acting a little funny these days anyway. So I mean, we'll see. But yeah. I was in New York briefly after college. I interned there and then freelance there. And similar to you, it was just work, 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 work. Like I think I maybe went out for a drink once or twice. Like I just didn't get to really experience the social side, because it was like internship, then like the job I needed on the side to like make some money. It was like nonstop. And I don't think I got to enjoy it as I probably would now, being a little older, having a little more money, a little, like the ability to kind of enjoy it in that way. It's definitely never off the table for me, because it's just a city I love. And like you said, it is at the end of the day, the heart of the industry. So we shall see.
I mean, I'll take you with open arms.
So you have been a designer for many years, but within Eloquii, you also now have the role of creative director. Can you talk to me about kind of what the role of the creative director at Eloquii is, and kind of what some of your roles and responsibilities are that differ from a design director?
Yeah, totally. It is not anything I went to school for. So let's start with that. So if you want to be a creative director, you can be. Just know that maybe you've lost your mind when you've accepted that role. I still have the same exact responsibilities in design. I still oversee the entire design team, all of the collections that we do. I'm still very much a part of it. What I've added on is it's the editorial aspect of what we showcase. So we are a DTC brand. And when you are online only, your imagery is what speaks to your customer as to who you are. And I think I always felt this for a long time. Like, I'm designing all this stuff, and then it goes off to some other team that really doesn't know why I designed this and how I want this to look. And then you see those photos up on the site and you're like, what is this?
They didn't get it. They did not get it.
Yeah, I was like, what happened? And luckily at Eloquii, I didn't really have too much of that feeling, because our original founder, she like kind of carved this path for me. She started as the designer, made herself the creative director, and she was just like, that's gonna be what you're gonna do one day, so you better start learning about photography. Even before I was even going to take this role on. And when she retired, she just like basically said to, our senior leadership team, she's like, Yesenia's going to do this job. Like, this is her job. Like, someone's going to lead you in the right direction. Is going to be her. And like,
yeah,
I'm so very grateful for that opportunity. Because I didn't know how much I was going to love that side of the job.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It is like, now I think about the clothing, right, that I'm designing, and then I think about who's my muse, right? Like, which model do I want to put in it? And like, I envision them in the clothing. And then when I think about them in the clothing, I think about, how do we want to shoot this? Like,
right,
where do we want to go in the world? Or do we want to do a whole studio build out? And I have learned a lot about that world.
And budgets and all of
Yo, that's what I was going to tell you next. The only thing that I will tell you about this job is, man, have I become a finance person? Because I manage a massive budget.
Yeah.
That all has to do with the photo world, and you learn a lot of tricks, and you become a negotiator. And I almost feel like, in a way, like I'm taking a master class of like how to be a CEO in a weird way.
Yeah,
which is something I would never see myself as. But when I do this job now with my design job, I'm like, maybe
I can, or
yeah, maybe I do have that. I'm like, I can put some things in an Excel chart and make the math. I can
listen. They say the best CEOs, it's about hiring the right people who know, who are the experts in those fields. So you might be able to.
Yeah, but it's like, it's so beautiful to see it. Like, I love shoot days. I have an amazing team that, like, I have a wonderful art director, and we have a producer, and I have so many talented like freelancers that I work with, because that's what I love the most. I love finding new photographers, new hair and makeup people, new stylists. Like, because they bring such a different energy to what
Right.
you're putting into the world.
Right.
But when I do get to really go to the big shoots, it's just like everyone's there for the same vision.
Right.
Everyone gets excited when the model comes out. There's that like,
Mhm.
still after so many years, I'm like, that's my baby, you know.
Yes.
And it's been a beautiful journey. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm a tired person often, but would not change it. I love it
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, I think what and I'll just say kudos to you and your team, because I think what Eloquii does so well is be able to visually show a vibe. Like you can automatically understand the vibe of the collection. The clothes go together, the vibe, the photography, the model, the hair, the makeup. It all comes together. And I think you to your point, at least I know for me as a designer, where I have struggled is that pass off. It's like, okay, now I have to pass this off and worry about the next season because I don't have the bandwidth, or it's not my responsibility to like take it to the next space. But I think it's so important because things get lost in translation. The way I saw this vibe and being styled is completely different now that like this other stylist has it, this other creative has it. Like my hands, I have no input. And sometimes even when you do, if there's not like that strict meeting of the minds of like, no, we have to pass it off in the right way, it's like you can try, but sometimes it just does not translate. So I think that I love that you're in both of those roles because it comes through very clearly that there's a cohesion from start to finish.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's important.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like pivotal if you are the person creating the vision of the product, that you would see that journey through.
Yes.
Because no one knows it better than you.
Right.
And of course, we have amazing people that we work with, but like it starts with an idea, and the idea came from you. So who better to do it?
Right. And like you said, being an online brand, or even just the importance that even if you have brick and mortar, the importance that social plays and like these visual marketing plays, you want to make sure that this imagery comes and it cuts through all of the noise. Because at the end of the day, I'm a believer that we're just in a space where marketing is most of what sells things these days. It's like you got to be able to cut through all of the noise when you're scrolling. What's the thing that I stop on and I'm like, oh wait, this feels different, this feels cool. So yeah, that's massively important, I think, to any brand, especially a digital brand.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, we're in the era of swiping on everything.
Yep.
And you can be swiped away very quickly if you do not capture your audience or capture a new audience, which is even more important.
Right. What benefit would you say being a plus size woman of color within this creative role brings into your brand, or really any brand that might be looking to have another voice at the table?
I think first and foremost, I think it's important. And it's important not just from like in the world, it is important to have representation at any table, because everyone has different walks of life, right? And if you sit at a table with a lot of sameness, you get the same. And I think for me in particular, being able to have a seat at the table and to really understand what it's like to live in this body and all of the things that have come with it, it has been very valuable, not just for myself, but for our team, for our brand. I think about things a little bit differently, you know, even like it comes down to like the simplest things at a fitting where I'm like, make sure she sits in this.
Yep.
Because when you sit, everything expands.
It spreads.
That's right. Or, you know, hey, like I have experience, like even like back zippers and stuff. I'm like, I can't get back there. Like
Mm-hmm.
you might be able to get back there. I can't get back there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like the design part. And then when we think about like how we speak to the customer too, or
Right.
even like big initiatives that we want to take on, like it all comes from a place of, well, I had some trauma at this age trying to figure this out. I have some trauma right now trying to figure this out. And it like helps to create like what is the white space, like Eloquii, we try a lot of things. We have swim, we have shoes, we have bridal now, we do a lot of collabs, and that all has come from a place of not just having a seat at the table, but being vulnerable to the team and saying,
Yeah.
let me tell you a bit about my experience. It may not be the experience for everyone, but I'm going to share
Right.
some insight. And it makes people think differently. And it makes people be like, oh, I never thought of that. Absolutely, we should do that. It's never what's great is that it's never, in my experience, it's never been like a shutdown to the idea. It's been a almost education.
Yeah.
I think some people are like, polarized by the thought of having to educate people on your experiences and X, Y, and Z. But like I can't expect people to know what it's like to have lived my life, just like I, don't want them to expect that I know what it's like to live in their life.
Right.
But when we have diversity on our seats, that's where the most wonderful ideas come, because everyone has had a different journey and they can share different things. And it gets people to open up too and say like, well, I may not be plus size, but I'm at this job because my sister is plus size or my partner
Right.
is plus size, and
Right.
I see what they go through, and maybe I'm going to think about things differently. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think too, like, no one's going to know this body type better than people who are in this body.
Right.
I think there's tons of talented people who have really done a lot of work to understand
Yeah.
what it's like, but we just feel it differently,
Mm-hmm.
like I can personally feel the things that are shifting in our industry for people like us before anyone else on my team, because
Right.
I'm in it. I'm a part of that community through and through, and you almost become like the guardian
Right.
of the space.
Right.
And I think it's really important, and the customer wants it. The
Mm-hmm.
customer wants to know that someone who looks like them
Right.
is taking care of them,
Right.
because
And
they haven't been taken care of for so long.
absolutely. And considering all of those things, and I think an important point that you made for any brands that are listening is not only having a diverse table, but having a space in which people feel comfortable sharing their experiences, knowing that they'll be listened to, that they'll be heard. And if things feel right, that they can be implemented in a way that'll be beneficial not only for them, but for the customer and essentially for the business, for the overall health of the business. Because, like you said, it is, while this is a business and it is about, making money, the way in which to do that is to be very thoughtful, to be authentic, to not be performative in a way. It's like we're just doing this as a money grab, but we're doing this to actually serve this customer who deserves all of this.
Yep. Yeah, I mean
Beautiful.
that's the truth of it. It's truly, that's what it comes down to. And I think even for those brands that may be listening, like this customer has been outcasted their whole life. So
Mhm.
why wouldn't you want to create a safe space for them to feel wanted?
Right.
And you can't create that space without having those people in your brand.
Right. What are your thoughts? Are this just kind of came off the top of my head because I feel like we are similar, and I know many of my friends or counterparts, it's like we have been through this journey of plus fashion, starting from when we were younger and there not being many options up till now, where there are becoming more options, but we've also evolved and almost matured in our style. When you think about kind of this next generation, this Gen Z, how do you think that because I feel like they're a lot more we want this, we're not taking it, no exceptions, like it is what it is. How do you think kind of that next wave of plus women and young women will affect kind of the way we move in design within the industry?
This is a really great question because it is something that I have been like battling in my heart recently.
Mm-hmm.
It is no secret that we are going backwards. There is this extreme return of thinness in the world, which then affects this space, which then affects this customer. And in thinking about Gen Z, like I'm scared, if I can be totally transparent. I have been thinking a lot about how I see a lot of the thought leaders in the plus space have almost stopped posting, almost stopped showing what they're excited about in fashion in general. And I think it's because millennials like us, it's almost like a trigger. We're being triggered right now to think about how we were treated when we were growing up.
Right.
Being wanted, bodies are trends, like all of this rhetoric that's happening. What I hope happens is that us, the millennials that have really overtaken the conversation of plus size bodies and representation and them being important in this fashion space, continue to spread our message instead of dying down. Because if we don't do that, Gen Z is going to just go totally right back to we were 10 years ago. And I fear for these kids growing up who will not be safe or comfortable in their bodies anymore, who will also then have a decline in passion for wanting to make change in this industry. So I almost feel like right now I feel very much like what are we gonna do? Like we've got to fix this because we are going backwards. I'm really scared for the future generations and how they may feel about themselves, because like really one of the biggest reasons I got into this is because I was like, I know what this did to me personally. I do not want that for other people growing up and feeling that way about themselves. And like if I have children one day, like I want them to feel good about themselves. So I would say anyone who's listening, if you are a thought leader in the plus size space, please do not give up because the industry is giving up on us. We have to continue forward, because I almost feel like we have a responsibility to the future of what this industry is and how our bodies are presented in this world.
No, I think that you're 100% spot on. Because we have, the industry is very different. While we may not be where we want to be, it's a very different retail landscape than when we were younger. And I think what we can't have happen is, like you said, for us to retreat, and for Gen Z to kind of retreat back to this idea of thinness, and that we're almost undeserving of clothes or undeserving of looking and feeling our best. And I think social media obviously has a lot to do with that, of just like, but she looks like this and she has this and she can wear this. And it's like, okay, how do we almost block that noise and show that there is beauty in this body that we have, that there are styles, that there are, fashion is a part of us as much as it is anybody else. So yes, thought leaders, industry leaders, keep pushing, because we do have a responsibility to continue to push this for the next generation. So I want to get into kind of just wins and challenges. So as you think about your last few years within the industry, can you speak to kind of maybe some of your biggest challenges or the biggest challenge you had either personal or professional, as you kind of have navigated the industry?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I think like the biggest challenge is like making that leap from straight size to plus size. Like you almost become like a niche designer, which I do not believe in. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I'm just a designer, guys. Like I can design anything for anyone.
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Because
just
I'd
let
still look at the same trends and the same, yeah, absolutely.
exactly. So that was at first like I'll be transparent and say like, okay, I'm gonna take a risk in my career, but it's like what I'm most passionate and feel needs to be done. And then I feel like, learning about this customer, as I've mentioned, was so eye-opening. It's like that in itself is like the biggest challenge, but the biggest win in my career because not everyone wants to get dressed, but not everyone wants to get dressed the way that you want to. And you also like if your mission is truly to make people feel good about themselves and what they're wearing, you have to try really hard to understand everyone's point of view and like what we've just discussed about how we have to have so many drops to cater to so many different customers.
Right.
And that is hard because like I have like personal really big dreams for this customer. Like I believe in a world where maybe one day I'll be designing like luxury plus size clothing and we can like really see ourselves in that space.
Right.
And I'm so eager to get there. Like I'm just chomping at the bit, but like the customer is just not there yet. And it is because sadly, like one of the things that I found a challenge in is society has trained this customer to shop at a promotional level because someone somewhere decided that plus size clothing should not be full price and decided that you can only get clothes if it's at a discount. And some of it I've learned throughout the years is because a lot of customers, they have this idea that like they may lose weight, they don't want to invest in a full wardrobe, all of this kind of thing. And then it's just the other conversations, it's just what they're used to, it's what they want.
Right.
So I find it very challenging when I am hearing constantly like push harder, give me more, better quality, I want this from the runway. Like I literally get 10 to 12 DMs a day from people being like, why can't I have this at Eloquii? And then at the other side of the token, I'm being told that, well, you're just so expensive. Like Eloquii is too expensive. And like, I'm like, I can't give you both. I just can't. Like, I want to give you so much more.
Right.
But I can't do it because it costs money to put more into the garments as much as possible.
Absolutely.
That's what I want to do. That's
right.
why I trust me. I want to do that. Everyone wants to do that, but
right.
it's not going to come with a promotion. And I feel like I don't know when we're going to get there, but I'm confident that we will. I want this customer to like really want to invest in themselves.
Right.
Like
you're worth it.
You'll buy a $3,000 bag at a brand that doesn't want anything to do with you.
Absolutely.
They do not accept you. They don't make clothes for you because they don't want to.
Right.
That's the straight up facts.
Right.
And then here's these brands who are trying so hard and want to give you more, but you won't spend more than $80 on something.
Right.
And that's like it's a challenge. And like, some things are definitely based off of like people's incomes and like what they can spend money on. Like the world is expensive. Like
right.
If you haven't heard, we're in an inflationary place. Eggs are like right now. So like it is the thing. And I get that. I very much get that. But I also think like it's time for this customer to invest in themselves and to really think to themselves like, yeah, I'm gonna buy these items because I deserve it, because these brands believe in me. Right. And I want to wear more higher end pieces.
Right. I think it's really about the approach and the mindset. And I know and again, I think it's about maturing almost in fashion, maturing in your style, and really curating, if you will, a wardrobe, and not like this fast fashion, I can just get this to wear to this thing, but it's like, what are the pieces that are going to be in your closet next year and in 2 years and in 3 years because you spent the money, you invested, and they're just like bomb pieces that you can bring out every once in a while. So yeah, I do think it's about shifting the mindset. And I think that's the mindset that, to your point, that a lot of straight size women have that are willing to spend the money. It's like they invest in creating these wardrobes. And plus women should also invest. Like we have that, we deserve that as well. To really have high quality, beautiful clothing in our closets that make us feel good.
Exactly. Even sometimes I'll look at a dress somewhere at a window and I'm like, I don't even care what it costs. If I could just have that dress in my closet. Like we all have had that moment.
Right.
I want that for all the plus size brands that are out there, that they can give that option to the customer and that they want it. Now, I will say, like, as much as the promotional thing is tough and like, trust me, I want to sell things at a way more expensive price. I still am very proud of this customer because we have evolved. We have been able to push some boundaries, and I think we're getting there. It's just, it's a much slower progression, but like, I believe in a world where one day anyone, any body type that they have, they can go to any store and buy whatever makes them feel good at whatever price that makes them feel good.
Right.
And that's just not where we're at. It just doesn't exist.
Right. And no, I agree. My hope for the future is that becomes the norm. Like you can go into Macy's and not have to go to like the top level to the back corner to find something. Like enough already.
Right.
And so what you kind of spoke to one of your wins, but are there any other wins or like specific moments when you were like, okay, I'm proud of myself, I did that? Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, it's been a long journey, this one. And I still surprise myself often when I'm like, oh, that's sold. Wow, I'm so happy about that. But there's one moment that I will always remember. There was this inside the Eloquii walls, it's like the infamous fringe dress. It was probably like the most expensive thing I've ever designed for the brand. This was probably like year 2 or 3 of me being there.
Okay.
And I mean, it was, as you know, as a designer, it was a battle royale with design versus merch and production. Woo! It was like, we cannot let this go out the door at this price. The customer will not buy this.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, we did everything we had to make it happen. And this like little fringe dress was, I think at that time, it was maybe like a $200 fringe dress. It was multicolored. It was hand dyed and sewn.
Oh, wow.
Okay? And for anyone who doesn't know, that's luxury, like to do at that price. And I remember we shot it was for an Easter group, and it hit the website, and right at like 8 a.m. I was like, all right, let's watch those numbers come in. I was like, am I gonna get fired today? Maybe. And I think the story goes that the dress sold out in 3 hours.
There you go.
And I am like, the dress was beautiful, and so many customers wore it and looked beautiful. And we even reordered it a couple of times because they just wanted it so much. But the story for me was like, going back to what I was saying, it's just like believing in this customer and them believing in themselves. And that one fringe dress then allowed me to start sprinkling some more of these little babies, opening up those gates, And it was one of the things our CEO at the time was like, for her, she'll still remember. She's like, that fringe dress, it just won't stop. It's like, I can't believe it. I did. She's like, if you would have told me that was going to stop, I was going to tell you absolutely not.
Yeah.
So that was a really big moment.
And I think as a designer, I love talking to you because like I know you get it. Like we get it. It's like a lot of times in those design meetings, as you're coming up with the line, like you said, working with PD, working with merchandising, it becomes like you could go at it with your cross-functional partners.
Yeah. We're all not sunshine and
No,
rainbows.
it's not. But I also think that tension is healthy sometimes, because at the end of the day, we all kind of have a similar goal. Like we want things to sell. But as a designer, you really have to pick and choose your battles, and you have to know, like, wait, no, I need this. Like, I need this one. You have to know when to really fight for something and when to kind of back off and say, all right, you have this one. So I love those moments and stories when it's like, no, I actually fought for this and it actually worked, because that's not always the case. I know we have all had those moments where we're like, yeah, that is a bottom seller, my bad. But it's always good to have those moments when you really like fought to get something through and the customer recognized, like, I knew it. It's like you knew that she would understand and connect with that garment in the same way that you did.
Yeah. I think like from a non-product level, another one is like literally sitting here today and saying, I'm the creative director of Eloquii. Like sometimes when people even say you're the creative director, I'm like, wow, I am that person. Like I forget. Because I'm just like
you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm here, I'm vibing, I'm happy. I was like, all right, I am that girl. And it's big because of so many things. Like first and foremost, I failed art class in my senior year of high school. I don't know why I did. I can't even remember. But I remember that teacher being like, you're never going to be an artist. And I was like, okay, cool. And when I started my career in fashion, it was tough. I had, when we started, the industry was still a bit old school, where you would be demeaned and yelled at and maybe had a binder thrown at you here or there. Like we're talking about some real abuse.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just happy to have a job. Like that was my mindset always. Like, okay, I will literally sketch until 3 or 4 in the morning. Whatever, if my hand is bleeding, I don't care. I will do whatever it takes, because there's nothing more important to me than like being in fashion.
A designer, right?
And I did not come from a lot. So like I said, my parents, they worked for everything that we ever had. They gave me and my brother the best life that they could, and they are my number one supporters. And that also puts a lot of pressure on you too. So like when you take some of that abuse that comes in the industry, you're just like, okay, I gotta keep moving because I gotta do this.
Gotta make my mama proud.
Exactly. And so there's that whole thing, right? There's like being in this space as a person of color who didn't come from anything.
Right.
And then like literally we have entered the lion's gate by being like, I'm going to go into the most vapid industry in the world.
Right.
And I'm going to try to make something of myself. And then to layer being a plus size person, I have always felt like I've had to work 10 times harder than most people. And I don't say that like to take out the tiny violin. I say that as like the actual truth.
Yep.
And if you would have told me, I don't know, even 10 years ago, that I would be the creative director at a brand like this and doing what I love and like living in New York City, like I would have been like, you're crazy. That story does not belong with a girl like me.
Right.
It's just not what the typical norm is. And like I said, I forget who I am sometimes and what I do, because I just like, for me, like I was taught my whole life from my parents, like just keep your head down and work hard. That's it.
Yeah.
Just whatever happens, just keep working. And like now I'm just like, I have a seat at the table. I
Mm-hmm.
have a big seat at the table, actually, like
Yeah.
I'm doing something that is changing not only my life, but
Yeah.
other people's lives.
You're speaking to a community. Like you have the eyes of the community. Like, let's be
Yeah.
real. Like Eloquii is a huge part of this community. So yeah, not it's a big deal.
Yeah. And so that like sometimes when people ask me like what are your wins, I'm always like, oh, this dress, or we did a collab with Jason Wu and blah blah blah, like all
Mm-hmm.
this kind of stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. I think I'm my biggest win.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
absolutely. That's right. I love it.
Like I forget. I really
Yeah.
forget. And I just like for those listening, like you can do it too.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like Lil Yesenia from Miami. She made it somewhere in my own eyes. I did. And I feel like there's a lot of people who probably want to make a lot of waves in this industry and they're too scared to, or they think like school is so expensive, which it
Yeah.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Our school was like too
Too expensive, right?
expensive. Yeah. But you can do it. Like if you just really like fight for your way, and it's a fight. You've got to
Mm-hmm.
be pretty gritty. You will make it.
Yeah. No,
I'm
that's
like really excited to see who the next, like
mm-hmm.
who's gonna be the next whatever in this space.
Right. No, I agree. And I think most excited for just also new voices, like you said. Like I feel like we've seen a lot of the same people, and really they've had a huge responsibility, if you will, to kind of carry this industry to where we are now. And they've done an amazing job at that. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see like with this next generation or this next wave of voices who can continue to push this forward, to push, the industry forward, and to really have them take notice and acknowledge, who we are, what we want, and why designing and creating for this customer is important from not only a bottom line, like a financial standpoint, which I don't understand why they don't see that as clear as it is, but just from like a moral standpoint, like an inclusivity standpoint, just being able to design for all women and serve all women.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we're doing like the Lord's work, I say.
yeah, I know. um, so as we kind of wrap things up and come to a close, we kind of spoke on it a little, but if there's anything you want to add, kind of what do you see, or what would you like to see in the next few years, 5 years from the industry, when it comes to plus size and inclusivity?
Oh man. First and foremost, which is the easiest, is like, hey, brands, hey, society, do not outcast us. Don't put us back in the box that we were in. We've come a long way, right? Like Eloquii is one brand. We can't do it all for everyone. I would love to, but it's like also there's so many different style profiles in the world that should be
Right.
celebrated. And I want to see I want to see more plus brands, and not even just plus brands, right? I mean, almost even a little bit tired of saying that and that word in specific. I just want to see extended sizes,
Right.
period, end of story, from other people.
Right.
And if there are new players in the space, like honestly, like I want them to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want us all to kind of like band together and
Right.
make this industry win together.
Right.
And like as crazy as it is to say this in 2023, like I just would love, not just for myself but for this customer, like I would just love to be able to go shopping at a store,
Mm-hmm.
walk in, oh, is this my size? Sure is. Oh, and it's cute. Wow. Okay, great. Like that feeling. I'm gonna be 36 this year, and I'm just like, I still don't really know what that feels like.
Yeah. It's
I
still a
don't
little scavenger hunt situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and we deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
We are the majority like stakeholder of cash flow right now.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't we be able to go in and shop somewhere? But I also, I think for myself, I've been thinking about this a lot too. I'm like, okay, I'm creative director now. Like, what do I want to do next? And
Yeah.
I think people like you, people like me, people like all of these influencers who have really like done so much for this community, like we have a really important role right now to be mentors to the
Yeah.
future of this industry. And I've had some great mentors, but none of them really had this experience
Right.
that we have had, because we kind of, like, to be honest, we've forged it now.
Absolutely.
The
Right.
last few years. So I would love for all of us to, be acknowledged by the fashion industry. Like, please put me on some CFDA panel. Come on, I'm ready.
For sure. Absolutely.
Like we should be teaching in schools. We should be having like all these like mentoring sessions. Like we should be seen as leaders in the fashion world.
Yes.
And we are not. P.S. Anyone listening, we are not acknowledged
Right.
for these strides that we have made.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that we are heard and seen, and that we are in the same rooms as the other designers that do straight size, and that we are helping to create like the next generation of what fashion looks like. And hopefully that next generation is just, it's one industry.
Right.
It's not straight size versus plus size. It's fashion for everyone.
No, that is exactly why I started this podcast, to speak to those that I feel like we don't hear their stories. We don't hear their voices. And I know so many people I've worked with and have met along my journey where I'm like, we have been a part of taking this industry to the level in which it is now. And we hear the voices of a few, but I'm like, no, I know too many people who have been down, who have been in the trenches, working, getting it done. And so I agree that our stories need to be heard, our voices need to be heard, our contribution needs to be acknowledged to kind of how Plus has gotten to where it is. And so I love that point. And it's also why I started Xtnded Consulting, to be able to help all brands, extend their sizing, and for it to be one industry, like you said, and it not be the plus over here, the straight size over here. So yeah, no, I love all of that. And that is my hope for the future of the fashion industry also. So as I close, I want this to be a space where we can support those who come on as a guest. So please tell the listeners how they can support you and the work you are doing at Eloquii.
Wow. I mean, Eloquii is such an open community. We really are. I've never connected with customers so much in my entire career. Like, let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. But also, like, when you think about businesses, right? You think about like big corporate America. Like we are. Eloquii is a small team, guys. We're a small team, and I read every single comment. I read every review. Some of them, I will say, can be soul crushing. So, maybe have a little grace for the people who are out here trying really hard, but also like be honest too, because I want to hear it. I want to know. The brand wants to know. We want to make sure that we're doing right by this customer. And I just think like continuing, obviously, not to give a plug to shop, but continuing to support the brand lets us do more,
Right.
The more that we can prove sales, prove data, prove, that this customer needs X, Y, and Z, the bigger the brand can evolve and the more opportunity we can have. And I mean, I like, it always goes back to community with me. Just like I want the customer to feel like Eloquii is their safe space, and that if they're in a pinch and they're like, oh no, I've got this thing I gotta go to and I want to be the most fabulous, that we are the first brand that you think about, because that's like what I love. I want you to show up and be like the most bomb person in the room.
Right. No, I love that. To be the first stop or the first place you think anybody thinks of when they're like, okay, I need to look good and I need some place to buy something good. And for that to be your brand, I agree that that's a flex. That's a win. I just bought a dress. I'm going to a wedding next month. I'm like, I know who's going to have what I need. I need a light blue dress. Eloquii got me and Eloquii had me.
I love that.
Well, it's been such a pleasure talking with you, catching up with you. I am so excited, so proud of your journey. And it's been great to kind of have a front row seat and kind of watching how you've been able to transition and excel and move up and kill it in the way that you have. So from me to you, thank you for coming on this platform. And I'm just so excited for what you have to come. And I know I'll be there to see you and to cheer you on and to continue to support everything that you're doing.
Thanks, Danielle. That means a lot. And from me to you, I've always just admired you and like everything that you're doing. Even like when you showed at Fashion Week, I was like, yes, she did that for us.
Yes, exactly that.
And even you opening up this like consulting firm, like it's important. It's what needs to exist. And I cannot imagine someone more powerful than you to do this for this industry. So I can't wait to watch what you're going to be doing. And, I always tell you, I hope one day we'll end up together somewhere.
Yes, we will. It'll happen.
Yep.
Put it into the atmosphere.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Xtnded Convos podcast. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Yesenia.
Thank you.